Hi all and welcome back. Today we're talking about Fort Solis. Fort Solis is a third-person sci-fi thriller developed by Fallen Leaf with the help of Black Draco Games in 2023 for the PS5 and PC. Fort Solis has an interesting structure and layout. It borrows stylings from streaming TV format but in a gaming form. The game is divided into chapters and each chapter has a solid beginning and end, kinda like a TV show would. The developers are quoted in saying, "In terms of retention, we want to aim for people who watch Netflix, Apple TV, or Prime. For them, an 8-hour TV show is a big commitment, so we look at that and said the game can't be over 5 hours or the players will find it boring." Which in a way I really respect. Better to have your game short and sweet rather than too long and bloated. Makes for a much better player experience. The game draws on influences from games like Dead Space, films like The Moon, John Carpenter's The Thing, and Sunshine. The game is going for a real dark sci-fi mystery thriller vibe. Spoiler warning from here on out. The game opens and we are introduced to two Martian service technicians, Jack and Jessica. Jack is voiced by Roger Clark, and Jessica is voiced by Julia Brown, as they come across a mysterious distress call from the nearby Fort Solis. From the opening alone, the game definitely does atmosphere right. Mars is a dark and oppressive place. The environment is all too familiar, making it very, very comfortable yet all the more unnerving. Sound design is good. Lots of ambient sound effects and music stings to heighten the tension at key moments. The game looks great and sounds great, but it does suffer from slight stuttering issues, sometimes when loading in new areas and the occasional pop-in, although you really have to be looking for it. The game does one thing that I really appreciate. In regards to loading in new areas, when going in or out of new buildings, both Jack and Jessica put in a solid effort to open doors. Also, when entering some areas, the camera switches to a close-up on the character's face, really helping with the tension. I liked it compared to the usual, "Wow, another slim passageway to crawl through." Funny that. Jack and Jessica split up. Jack gets over to Fort Solis. Strangely, all the doors and entryways are shut, thanks to their security lockdown. So Jack wisely decides to climb up the nearby cliff face and find a way in. On the cliff climb up, we are treated to the game's QTEs. Failure isn't game over, thankfully, just Jack is in for a very, very, very worst time. As Jack makes his way into the atrium, what can I say? All that hard climbing work and it's time for a nice cold beer. Fort Solis is packed full of opportunities of cool little interactive moments and plenty of things to do. First thing on the list for Jack is to get the atrium's power back on. Searching through the parts of the atrium that are accessible, we go through the computers and files of the nearby staff rooms and we find whisperings of something major happening in the dig site. And thanks to storm season and concurrent power outages, as Jack works his way through more parts of the station and into the barracks and living quarters, we find absolutely no one. The place really is starting to give me the creeps. Finding what we need from the crew areas and surrounding common room, we make our way into Medbay. To get ourselves into Medbay, we need to locate a missing power cell to get through the locked door. Finding more computers during our search, we find recordings mentioning something called Compound 26, and some people's real resistance to what certain staff members are working towards. With half of the crew labeling Compound 26 as a miracle, and half of the crew labeling it as a massive threat that has to be stopped. As we rummage our way through Medbay on our search for clues, we come to the office of Chief Medical Officer Wyatt. He mentions something strange about people who return from Fort Solis' dig site. All returning staff are being treated for radiation poisoning. Wyatt expresses a rather adamant need for any of the dig site members to stay where they are and wait for testing. As you can probably imagine, some of Wyatt's colleagues aren't too fond of all these strict measures. Making our way deeper through Medbay, we find our first body. The body of Chief Security Officer Richardson, who appears to have been maybe operated on or gone through some kind of gnarly procedure. Something's not gone quite well for him. And a strange recording mentioning mysterious damage to the outer doors of their compound. As we radio Jessica with an update, as she is rightly nervous, she asks us to return to the vehicle and await help. But as we make our way out of the facility, a mysterious figure, caked in blood, seals off all the exits to Medbay and starts a cleansing process. You know, the cut the oxygen and release flames type? Jack makes his way back the way he came and escapes through a maintenance hatch. Once we have escaped the purge and make our way back to the atrium, we find the body of Fort Solis' lead botanist, Helen. She was murdered, mysteriously trying to escape from someone or something. Jessica is now begging Jack to leave as they wait for Martian support, but Jack pushes on as he's determined to really lift the lockdown. Making our way back outside, and as we explore other parts of the facility, we find the office and things of drill site manager Nick. We find in a nearby recording that he has had dealings with the lead botanist Helen, who pushes for more and more resources, and his team are really suffering the effects of what they're doing at the dig site. It really makes you wonder what they're up to. All of their people are getting sick, and their lead researcher needs more resources and more man hours to get her project done. Strange. Making our way through the offices and to the drill bay hangar, we get immediately "Omae wa mo shinderu" by a random drill platform. As we make our way deeper into the tunnels, the soundtrack is really doing its work. The music creates a real sense of dread and angst, making you really feel alone in this dark and harsh environment. Figuring out a way to open some inner doors, we escape to the surface. Finally outside and into a rather heavy storm, moving towards maintenance while we update Jessica on our current progress. Searching through nearby sheds and maintenance shacks, we come by Nick's body, and he mentions that he is now fully committed to Compound 26 and the work that Helen is doing. I mean, it must really be something if you have half the team that wants to destroy it and the other half wants to guard it and protect it at all costs. Next stop for our eponymous hero Jack is to get the power back on. Jack, now determined to see it through, makes his way to the service tunnels and down to the power rooms to find both of the generators have been mysteriously sabotaged. Just as Jack turns to leave out of nowhere, this frantic man from earlier with the suit attacks Jack, overpowers him and knocks him unconscious. We now cut back to a frantic and rightly worried Jessica as we take control of her and make our way back into Solis to go after Jack and save him if we can. Jessica being further back from Jack, the storm from earlier finally catches up with her. We have to take cover under a truck from that oh so very inviting Martian hospitality. Making our way back to Solis, we find the same scene from earlier. All access has been blocked off. Luckily though for Jessica, Jack left his torch behind and we have our way in. Those cramped close-up loading shots they use are starting to pay off as we are greeted by a very erratic Wyatt, asking after Jessica, "Who are you? Why are you here? What are you doing here?" With tension so thick you cut it with a bloody chainsaw. Wyatt's cover doesn't last too long and he finally snaps and attacks Jessica. Fight ensues and she manages to get the better of Wyatt, trapping him on the side of a door as Wyatt screams that he's going to see her later. A very nervous Jessica is now retracing Jack's footsteps in an effort to find him before Wyatt does. Jessica finds another recording showing Wyatt's ambush of Jack and dragging him away. Just as Wyatt calls Jessica over the radio to both taunt her and promise her answers about what the hell is going on here. Next off for Jessica is to get to the comms building to reset the server, finally lifting the lockdown, and she can finally get the fuck out of here, hopefully with Jack. Finally, as Jess makes her way into the comms building, we find another log from site technician Nassim. He's worried about the base's consistent power outages and the growing anxiety from other colleagues about the damage to the exterior doors. The damage is becoming more frequent and more severe. As we finally make our way down to the comms building basement, we must reset the servers to lift the lockdown. But unfortunately for us, we don't have the clearance, so we have to backtrack and find the site manager in the canteen. Making our way back to the canteen from earlier, we find the site manager's body and more footage of Wyatt casually murdering him. I wonder what went wrong with Wyatt to make him snap so badly. We search the site manager's body, find his security clearance, and lay him down the rest. Now, with a much greater security access, we find more personal logs of Wyatt, as he clues us in about what's happening with Fort Solis. He finds out that the soil on Mars has been contaminated with heavy bouts of radiation. Helen's team of botanists are trying to find a way to make Compound 26 workable to increase Earth's food production. But the real kicker is that Helen and her team have been mixing Compound 26 with that irradiated Martian soil, which got them their breakthrough in the first place. The Fort Solis crew split off into factions about what should be done with Helen's formula. As Wyatt shares more and more with us, we also see his mental decline into the mentally unhinged person that he's now become. Once we finally sort out the server, Wyatt again contacts Jessica over the radio to give his side of events. That his concerns were ignored once he discovered the effects of what Helen and her team were doing. That he above all felt that a sample of that Martian soil mixed with Compound 26 cannot, under any circumstances, leave the facility. But as Wyatt is too far gone, Jessica heads to the greenhouse to confront him and hopefully save Jack. Coming to the greenhouse and its sub-levels, we find more data pertaining to the compound and its effects on their bee colony, making them more aggressive and isolatory, giving us more of an idea that maybe Compound 26 isn't the miracle cure people think it is. Jigging our way through more of the research area and back up the stairs into the main building of the greenhouse, we again clash with Wyatt, but luckily Jessica fights him off as he slips away again. Moving through more of the dilapidated building, we find an unconscious Jack, as Wyatt is back to confront us about all that he had to do to keep the soil from company hands. From the sabotage to messing with their facility systems, we see Wyatt really bubble over as he tells us all of this, and a final showdown ensues between Jessica and Wyatt. Jessica is wounded by a crazed Wyatt, and just as Wyatt goes to finish her off, Jack hits Wyatt and carries Jessica out of there. As both Jack and Jessica desperately push for the exit, Jessica slips away from Jack and locks the door behind him, as she sacrifices herself to buy Jack some precious time to escape from Wyatt. Making our way back outside, we must now brace against the harsh Martian winds as Jack makes his way to a nearby garage, hopefully to hide from Wyatt and make his final stand. Jack, now being frantic and highly erratic but ever so determined, evades Wyatt just long enough to get the drop on him. Our rambling Wyatt and Jack now fight it out amongst the rovers. Both Jack and Wyatt get hits in, but Wyatt is again the victor. With that final moment, that last second of life, Jack is saved from his fate by Martian special forces, quickly dispatching Wyatt, and we check on Jack as we cut to credits. I do really like the developer's idea of making it short but sweet. The game was short, from 3 to 6 hours depending on how thorough you want to be, but those 3 to 6 hours are spent in a very creepy, lonely and harsh environment as you solve the mystery of Fort Solis. If you like sci-fi or a good thriller, this game is an easy recommend. Peace.